Hey everybody, welcome to another Road to 1000 Dueling book rating. This is episode, I believe, number 9, if I'm counting correctly. And today we're going to be playing against Invoked Shaddolls. We're going to be playing a True King Dinosaur deck. So I believe that this is going to be the list that one of my cousins is going to be taking to the 3v3, one of my teammates. So I figured I might as well test out his list to make sure I know what his deck does so that we can definitely help him with that. So I decided to go at the first with the going first list, but as further development of the deck went along, I decided to end on a going second deck. But for first, this first game, we're actually going to be going first for both games. So this is just a standard opening hand. I mean, we drew the one of diagram and the one of set rotation, but I mean, we go with the diagram and we go ahead and pop the baby and then add the Lithosogen, and then we can use baby's effect. Also, we get hit with the drill here, which is fine. So baby chain link 1, drill chain link 2. Baby resolves just fine. We search for Oviraptor, and this is a hand that can play around. This deck plays around draw quite well, even because we go ahead and use the Oviraptor to actually go ahead and set a giant Rex to the graveyard. And then from here, we can actually just go ahead and discard our miscellaneous source that we have in our hand and then banish it with the giant Rex, and we can go for a SirEmanon. And so the reason that we do this is because in the end phase, miscellaneous source is going to destroy the monster that we summon off of its own effect. And when SirEmanon is destroyed, you get to summon a level 4 or higher dinosaur type monster from your deck, but it can't attack, which is fine because we're going to be summoning Pinkertops. So Rex summons itself back due to its own effect, and then we're going to go ahead and overlay into a copy of Lagia. So typically this hand would normally end on VFD, but we do not have enough extenders. I believe we could potentially end on it, but I think the Lithosogen, with the Lithosogen that we have, but I don't think that it's super worth it. So yeah, and we can't really search anything off the fossil dig anyways, so we just are going to end on a spell trap negate or a summon negate as well as a Pinkertops. And we can set the set rotation, so if he activates a field spell, we can actually override it. So, and that's in fact what we're going to do here in a minute anyways. So we go ahead and pass our turn. We have a fossil dig for the follow-up for next turn. We're also SirEmanon is going to trigger due to miscellaneous sources effect, and we're going to get Pinkertops in the end phase. And so he has a pretty big board that he's staring up against. So I believe he starts off with a magical meltdown, which we're going to actually activate our set rotation, which is going to override it. And we're going to give him the Lost World as well as give ourselves the Black Garden. And we just show him really quick that it is Black Garden. Anyways, he starts off with a El Shaddol fusion summoning a Shaddol monster, but we're going to go ahead and Lagia that. I don't really want that going through. And then he goes ahead, I believe, here and activates. Oh no, he goes for an Alistair the Invoker and searches for a copy of Invocation. Next, he can go ahead and he could link everything off and make a Makaba, and I think that's actually what he does. I think he goes Invoker. Oh, he actually doesn't. Never mind. That's really interesting, actually. But he has a set called By the Grave. He passes it to us, which we go ahead and we go ahead for Pinkertops effect to pop the back row. He's going to chain Called By the Grave, banishing our Oviraptor, which is pretty unfortunate for us, but I mean, we'd play into it harder if we activated the Fossil Day anyways. So I believe here we just go ahead with a Monster Reborn, bring back the Pinkertops, and then from here we're just going to go into battle phase and hit him for 24 and then 26. So that's 3,000 damage, right? Or 4,000 damage, excuse me. In main phase 2, we actually misclick hit the end phase button, but in main phase 2, we actually flip over the Black Garden and we pass our turn. He draws for turn, he draws into a Foolish Burial, goes on and activates it and sends the Damage Juggler to the graveyard, and then he uses Invocation to banish the Invoker as well as the Juggler into a copy of Makaba. So I'm not sure exactly why he didn't just make Makaba off of using the Alistair into Almirage and then to secure Gardna. Maybe he just doesn't know the play. Anyways, Black Garden triggers here, halves the attack of Makaba, and then it gives us a token. He's going to go into battle phase. Actually, he's going to Invocation first to add back the Invoker, which is fine. Then he's going to go into battle phase and hit us for 450 life points of damage, destroying our token, which is fine. And he just decides to scoop up the game there because we do have a Pinkertops effect. And then from there, we can just attack over his stuff and just keep going. So game number 2, he opts to go second, which means that we're going to be going first yet again. And so we go ahead and we start with a copy of our Oviraptor to search for a miscellaneous source. So we opened up full combo here, which is Oviraptor plus Survival's End. So we Oviraptor search miss effect, and then we banish the miss for a YOLO. summoning, synchroing those two into a Garden Rose Maiden, you can search for a Black Garden. So we search for Garden here, and we go ahead and activate it, as well as we can use our Foolish Burial Goods to send Survival Zen to the grave, and then we activate our Black Garden, set the Survival Zen, and pass the turn to him. So he starts off with a Shaddoll Fusion that he drew for turn, luckily for him. He fuses Beast with Dragon, and he goes ahead and summons Wenda. And so he can do the Chain Links here. Black Garden has to activate his Chain Link 1 because it's mandatory. And then I believe he goes 2 Dragon, 3 Beast. So the chain resolves backwards, and he goes ahead and draws a card for Beast. Then pops with Dragon, and so the token never gets summoned because Black Garden is no longer on the field, and Windows attack doesn't get halved either. So he's stuck with a 2200 attack window, but he can attack over Garden Rose Maiden, so that's pretty solid for us. So he sets Hedgehog and he passes his turn. We draw for turn, we draw another Foolish Burial Goods, which is pretty unfortunate. But we start off with a Petite Pteranodon, and we go ahead and use our Survival Zen to pop the Hedgehog. So the reason that we don't pop Winda here is because Winda can't be destroyed by card effects, so that's important to know. Hedgehog is going to go ahead and trigger, and so is Petite Pteranodon. So Petite is Chainlink 1, Hedgehog Chainlink 2. And so we resolve backwards, Beast summons, and then you get a Pinkertop summon as well. We switch our Garden Rose Maiden to attack mode, and then we attack with Pinkertops over, because that was our one special summon for the turn, for 400 damage, and then we attack directly for Garden Rose Maiden for another 1600. I believe it looks like he doesn't actually take the correct amount of damage. He should have taken 400 and then 1600, so I'm not sure what happened there. But I don't think it's gonna matter in the long run anyways. I just happened to not notice that. Anyways, we use our Foolish Burial Goods and send another copy of Survival Zen to the graveyard, and we pass our turn. So he goes with a Shaddoll Fusion, fusing Trick Clown as well as Beast into Construct. And so he does his Chain Links here, Construct, Chain Link 1, Beast, Chain Link 2. He just opts to not use Trick Clown for some reason, which is really odd to me, but whatever. So he draws a card, and he sends a Shaddoll Dragon to the grave, which pops our back row. Survival Zen's not really useful. It's actually better in the graveyard anyway, so I'm okay with that. He goes into battle phase and uses Construct to attack. We're going to go ahead and chain our effect to pop the Construct, and Construct is going to go ahead and add Shaddoll Fusion to his hand. And he can only use it once per turn, so he could just set it and then use it up during our turn. I'm not sure if he actually opts to do that here, but he Invocation Squamata as well as Hedgehog into a copy of Winda. And then he can use Hog and Squamata. So Hog's going to go ahead and add Squamata, and then Squamata... oh no, he added Squamata off of Hog. I'm not... Yeah, it's a little awkward, but yeah. Anyways, going into our draw for turn, we draw into a Ultimate Conductor Tyranno, which is pretty solid. What I would have done if I didn't draw the Conductor Tyranno is I probably would have crashed my Maiden into the Winda. Hopefully I would have drew a monster, obviously. And then we would banish the Garden Rose Maiden as well as any dino from our grave, and then we can actually summon Conductor from our deck. It would have been really awkward for us, but that would have been probably the play if we had an extra monster that wasn't Conductor. But luckily we drew it anyway, so we just banish a Petite and an Ovi, and we can just summon it from our hand here. And then he just scoops there because we have quite a bit of disruption. We can, attack with our Conductor, hit him with the Maiden for, I believe right there, that's 2,900 damage. And so that would normally put him at 3,100. His life points are a little bit off, but that's okay. And then during his turn, we can Conductor set his monsters, and I'm pretty sure he just can't out Conductor unless if he has Construct. So we just go ahead and take the win there. Moving on into game number 2. Or match number 2. This is not a full match, and I just wanted to point something out in it that's very important. He opts for me to go first, which is fine. This was when I switched over to the going second deck, so that's worth mentioning here. So we go with Oviraptor and then Lost World. So Lost World Chainlink 2, Ovi Chainlink 1, we search Baby Pterosaurus, give him a token. I did it in the wrong order, but I did say specifically in the chat box, Ovi Chainlink 1, Lost World Chainlink 2, so it plays around Ash. But yeah, and then we use our True King to pop Dogaron as well as the baby, and then we can use the baby to summon Aeolo. And we can use Ovi to pop the token, save the token by destroying a Baby Pterosaurus, which triggers its effect, summon Miscellaneousaurus. So he gets a little confused. He's not exactly sure what's going on, so I explain everything really quick to him. We go ahead with Miscellaneousaurus, and then we link everything, or synchro everything off into a Trishula. So he actually targets the Kaiju Slumber here. as you can see here, I do point at it, and he shuffles his hand. So this is very worth noting. Call a judge when this happens, which is in fact what I do. But he argues with me, and he says, well, I would have shuffled my hand anyways before you would have used Trishula's effect. But I gave him a solid, like, 4 seconds. Let's see if we can find it in the chat logs here. I summoned Trishula at 3 minutes in right here, and then I rolled a die, and I said Trish effect, and I pointed at the card. Then he shuffles his hand 4 seconds later, and I'm like, and then he asked, like, why I shuffled and stuff, and then I was like, come on, man, like, don't do that. So I called the judge for cheating, and he just goes ahead and just leaves the move. So it's just important to know, like, if any of these things happen, just call a judge. Like, it'll give you a free win because, like, you can't confirm which card it was. So, like, not only should you do it for, like, a game point, a game point side of view, because if you're getting a free win for, because your opponent's being dumb, might as well take it, that's pretty good. I know it feels kind of scummy, but, like, at the same time, your opponent really should, like, know the rules and stuff like that. In fact, I had a duel at one of my last regionals where my opponents used Emerald Bird, Lunalight Emerald Bird, and he discarded Lunalight Perfume. A Lunalight Perfume is not a Lunalight card because it has the text Luna Space Light. He drew a card and shuffled his hand. At this point, I said, hey, Lunalight Perfume is not a card. And he did this, like, all in one motion, so, like, I didn't have time to respond. And so I was like, whoa. Lunalight Perfume is not a Lunalight card. And so he looks at his hand, he just puts a card on the top of his deck, and then adds the perfume back to hand. He's like, oh, sorry, my bad. And then he continues playing. I should have caught this, and I really should have called a judge and said, hey, my opponent, like, shuffled his hand. And I felt really bad because, like, I already won the game one. Just because, like, I had a lot of luck. I top deck Swap Frog, like, and won the game off of it. But, like, I felt kind of bad, and the guy was just clearly upset because, like, his day hadn't been going that great. So I did just feel bad for him, but realistically, you need to call a judge because this could be cheating, and you can't, from your perspective, your opponents could possibly be cheating, and if they shuffle their hand like that, there's no way for you to tell whether this is good or not. So, moral of the story, call a judge when something is not going right. Like in this case, like if your opponent shuffles their hand. I know this isn't really directly related to Dinosaur gameplay, but yeah, I thought I'd mention that. Anyways, moving on into match number 2, or I guess 3, technically. We were playing against Shadal, like, it's just danger matchup, so there's a lot of plays going on here, so I'm going to go ahead and just fast forward because his turn takes forever. So basically what he does is his whole point is to rip a lot of cards out of my hand and on a negate as well as VFD. And that's actually what he ends up doing, but it takes forever for him to do it. Uses all his danger monsters, discards cards out of his hand, and then he can go ahead and overlay everything. This was a really cool tech I actually really liked. He uses Coach King Giant Trainer, and you can actually, it's 3 level 8 monsters, detach a material from a card, draw a card, show it to your opponent. If it's a monster inflicting under damage, you can't attack this turn, that's fine. And you can use it 3 times per turn. He has 3 materials, so he goes ahead and he's going to use it all 3 times. And drawing Greffer, I believe he also drew Ogopogo, although I'm not quite sure on the first draw. And then he draws Dogman. So absolutely insane, 3 draws in a row. I'm going to take 2,400 points of damage, which is pretty solid. And then he has all these monsters that he can use for his danger cards. So that's really nice on his point, from his perspective. And so I just keep on, like, using I just keep, like, hitting his danger monsters, and I'm just trying to fix my hand, but I keep drawing bad cards like Baby Ceratosaurus and Aeolo with no way to, like, pop them outside of my True King. Anyways, so he goes ahead and, Pot of Avarice, he's just drawing tons of card off of, like, Desires and everything, and at this point, he would use Desires, so his Desires becomes a discard outlet anyways, so, like, he can, if he discards it off of, like, Saryuja and stuff, it's great. But he goes for a Saryuja, sends back the Desires and everything like that, fixes his hand, the drill. And I just keep hitting pretty much bad cards out of his hand. I don't get lucky at all here, and I don't hit, like, any Dogmans, or I don't hit an extra Ogopogo. Like, he plays pretty well, although, like, I think his deck is 60 cards, so I don't think it's very likely for him to draw many cards out of his hand. Anyways, he uses Silva, Sylvia here, which lets him return. It has me return the 2 cards from my hand to the bottom of my deck, which is pretty solid for him because then I'm down to just like 3 cards in my hand, which is really nice for him. But yeah, he just keeps extending, makes a Trishula, banishes everything, and yeah, and then he makes another Saryuja, draws 4, puts the cards back. And then beginning of the end, so it's just like he's drawing extra cards, and Bigfoot, he just has like what seems to be the perfect hand here. And I do make sure that all these danger activations are like perfect, because like if you discard 2 dangers, then their effects can activate. You know the drill with that and everything like that. Hidugars brings back Snow, and then like summons the Grapha, and then makes Hope Harbinger. And then he goes ahead and summons the Prig Spreader Zombie, uses it with Sukanoko and Danger Chupacabra for another copy of Trishula. And so at this point he can make a VFD, and that's pretty much game over for me, because he's going to banish another card out of my hand. Unfortunately, he hits my Oviraptor, but he's going to make the VFD anyway, so it's not like it really mattered. He's going to go with Danger Mothman, which unfortunately doesn't hit the Mothman. It's going to hit a Sylvia, which is fine, I guess. And then he's going to summon it back, and then use the Grapha, and then he's going to use the Grapha, the Mothman, and the Barricade Board blocker into a copy of Appaloosa. So at this point, he has 3 negates on Appaloosa, a Spell Trap negate on Hope Harbinger, and I have 2 cards in hand, because I'm going to draw for turn, and I can't use Dark Monsters. What can I do? I mean, like, I drew Fossil Dig for turn. What can I do? Like, search OV, pass? Like, there's nothing I can do. So we start off, and we have him go first. We say, you go ahead. That's fine. And so he starts off, he does a Danger Thunderbird. We hit the Thunderbird, fortunately for us, which is really nice. And then he goes ahead and uses Mothman, which I believe I just hit bad rolls. Like, I don't hit a card. And then I hit the Danger Response Team, which is probably the best card he could have hit out of his hand. And then he's going to go ahead and use its effects, return it, draw a card, and then he's going to use Mothman to also draw a card, discard a card. And so then he's going to go ahead with a Pot of Desires, which we are going to Ash here because this is a +1, so we have to Ash that. I was trying to hold the Ash for something important anyways. He goes ahead with the Card of Destruction, wow, what am I saying? We discard our whole hand, and he draws into an Allure as well as a Bigfoot. So at this point, he doesn't have a whole lot of plays. He says, if you have OV Scoop, or I'm going to Scoop, but I go ahead and I actually use Droll after he uses Allure, and so he can't use his trade-in. He could use Bigfoot, but it's not worth it. So he just says, if you have OV, I'll Scoop, and I say I don't. So we draw for turn. So at this point, the only play that I see is to normal summon the Petite Pteranodon, because we have 1 dinosaur monster in our graveyard, and we have a Conductor in our hand. So I say, okay, let's normal summon Petite Pteranodon. We're going to crash it into Dogmen. We're going to take 1900 damage. In our main 2, we're going to banish 2 dinos, summon the Conductor, and then we're good. Because if we summon Conductor, especially if it's in defense mode, he's not going to run it over. We can actually use the Conductor to pop the baby, flip his monsters face down, and we can summon an OV from deck. So we're pretty much set here. He goes with the trade-in, discarding Bigfoot. We Ash it. He uses Bigfoot's effect to pop the Conductor. We chain the Conductor, and at this point, he sees the writing on the wall, and he scoops it up. Moving into game number 3. This actually was a really fun game, like overall. I actually had a lot of fun playing it, even though for game 1 is pretty much solitaire. But he actually opts for us to go first, which is fine. Here we go, Diagram, pop the baby, and then we search for a True King Gem. Baby summons baby, normal OV effect searches Conductor. OV's second effect pops baby, baby summons baby from deck. We have 2 babies on field. Now we can use True King Gem to pop both. Special itself, and at this point he just scoops because his hand isn't great. We're going to make VFD call Dark, and we're going to have a Conductor as well backed up with this whole board anyways. I think this is, I play the board out anyways. So I go ahead and I make a Trishula here just to see like what would have happened in the replay. So we would have hit a Dangerous Sukanoko out of his hand. And then at this point, we'd have banished 2 for the Petite Pteranodon, banished 2 more for the Conductor, and then overlay into a VFD, which should be in defense mode, actually. And the Petite Pteranodon's going to go ahead and summon Pinkertops from deck. And we do have a Droll and an Ash. So we literally have 5 forms of disruption, because we can stop all his dark monsters, pop a card on the field, flip everything face down, negate a add, and he can't add after that. So like, we're pretty much set for the whole game. I think we win this one like no matter what. So pretty broken hand, I would say. Going into our last match for today, we are playing against Cyber Dragons, and we opt for him to go first. So he machine duplications into 2 copies of Cyber Dragon, and then he links off for an Almirage, and then he goes into Nova, which goes ahead and special sets Cyber Dragon back. He makes Infinity, sucks up the Almirage, and sets the Call by the Grave and passes his turn. So I'm thinking here, right, like I could bait out the Infinity with Mind Control, but I think the smart play here is to try and bait it out the negate anyways. So we're going to go ahead and use our Lost World. So at this point, he's pretty much forced to use the Infinity effect. So he does, and negates the Lost World, which is fine. We use Mind Control to target the Infinity, suck up his own Cyber Dragon, which is pretty nice. Because Mind Control doesn't negate the effects, we can just go ahead and Infinity just suck up his dude. And then we're going to go ahead for an Oviraptor, which he ashes, which is fine. I didn't draw the mess for it or anything, so that's a little unfortunate. But we're going to go ahead into a copy of Phoenix, and we're going to use Phoenix to discard Aeolo, and he's going to chain the Call by the Grave to banish the Oviraptor, which is fine. Battle phase, we hit him for 1900. And we go ahead and we think here, because I do have a diagram as well as a Lithosogem. So I was trying to like I wasn't exactly sure what the Red True King's effect was. So I went ahead and I actually read it really quick. But I go ahead and diagram pop my Lithosogem to search for it. So its effect actually reads that when it is destroyed by a card effect, you can add a non-fire worm monster from your graveyard to your hand, which means the Lithosogem. So over the course of 2 turns, it's actually going to get you a +1, because if you diagram pop the Lithosogem, and then the next turn you diagram pop the Agnosomiad, and then you search for another copy of itself, you can actually add the Lithosogem with the Agnomisiad. I can't even pronounce it. And then you'll actually have a pretty good hand, and then you can use one of the effects, as you'll see here in a second. So he draws for turn, he draws into Galaxy Soldier as well as the Cyber Dragon. So he specials Cyber Dragon, and he links off it, contact fuses with my Phoenix into a Chimera Tech Mega Fleet. I take 24 here, which is fine. Passes it back to me, so I actually draw the second copy of Agnimazud. I don't know, whatever. Diagram's effect is going to go ahead and pop my Agnim, that's fine. And I'm going to search for another copy of itself, then use its other effect to go ahead and add a True King that's not a fire from my graveyard to my hand. And then we're going to go ahead and use one of the effects to go ahead and pop both. And then we can go ahead and use Lithosogem's effect to special summon back the other True King Fire. Then at this point we can go and attack for 500 over, and then attack him directly for 29, so 3,400 total. Then we're going to go into main 2, and we're going to overlay into a VFD. And on second thoughts, I don't think this is exactly like the right play, because it does play into Cyber Dragon pretty hard, into like Mega Fleet at least. So I really shouldn't have done that, but Truth King is going to go ahead and activate. I'm going to call light monsters. On second thoughts, I really should have called dark, because all of these Mega Fleets are dark monsters, and this only makes the face-up monsters currently on the field can't attack with that attribute or activate their effects. So he's going to go ahead and link or sync or fusion into Mega Fleet, which he can actually attack with it because it is a dark monster, and I called light. Even though it changed everything on the field to light, this wasn't on the field at the time of activation, so this is still a dark monster, so he can actually attack with it. But he actually just passes for some reason. I don't think he read the card correctly, which is fine. We're going to go ahead and use our Fossil Dig to search for a Oviraptor, and then we can go ahead and use this Oviraptor to go ahead and search, I believe, for another copy of Oviraptor, because I didn't have an extra dino in graveyard to search for Conductor. So if I wanted to make Conductor, I could search the Conductor, Oviraptor attack, and then I have a Conductor on field, but then I can't do anything else. So I figured I might as well just search Oviraptor and try again next turn. So he goes with a machine duplication, draw for turn. He's going to go into battle phase. Mega Fleet's going to attack over Oviraptor. I'm going to take 600 damage, and my Ovi is going to be destroyed, which is plenty fine with me. I draw the Conductor for turn anyways, so I use the Oviraptor to actually send Rex from my deck to the grave. banish it with the Oviraptor to special the Conductor Tyranno. Rex is going to summon itself back. We have a rank 4 access, and he scoops it. Going into game number 2, he opts for us to go first, which is fine. And our hand's pretty bad, honestly. We're going to Fossil Dig for Oviraptor, and then we're going to normal the Oviraptor, which gets hit with a Impermanence. And at this point, our hand does nothing, so we just are like, okay, go ahead. He goes with a Core and searches for Cyberload Fusion. Uses Machine Dupe, summons 2 more Cyber Dragons from the deck. At this point, he goes into battle phase, hits me for 300, 400, 2100. And that's a lot of damage right there, but it's not over because he's going to go ahead and use Cyberload Fusion to go ahead and fuse everything into a copy of Cyber Twin Dragon, which is going to attack for 5,600 damage, which is good. So we scoop it up. Going into game number 3, I opt to start actually because I thought that he would think that I would go second, so I tricked him, you know. And I decided I want to go first. So we Fossil Dig into Baby, use Diagram to pop the Baby, search for Lithosogem, Baby's effect's going to summon Baby, and then we're going to Oviraptor, search for Conductor. But Obi's second effect's going to go ahead and pop the Baby, summon the Baby back, Baby's effect's going to activate, and we're going to go ahead and summon another one from the deck. Then Lithosogem's effect's going to go ahead and pop both, summon itself, Baby's effect activates twice, we're going to go for a Miscellaneous Source as well as a Giant Rex. And we're going to overlay into a Lagia. Then we're going to set a Trap Trick, banish 2 copies of Baby Ceratosaurus, and we're going to summon Conductor Tyranno. So at this point, he Juicy He targets my Lagia, but then he thinks about it and he says, no, actually, I want the Conductor. And I say, that's fine. So we fix the game state here. It takes a second, though. But I overlay the Lagia. Then he special summons Cyber Dragon. So on Resolution, I decide to go ahead and activate Trap Trick. Banish the Sanctums, and then set the Sanctum, and then on Resolution, I activate the Sanctums and the Scythe, and then on the Resolution of that, Scythe's effect activates, and he can't summon from the extra deck. Then he goes ahead and he normal summons a copy of Core, and he searches for Cybernetic Overflow, which is fine with me. I probably should have negated the summon here, but I'm not exactly sure. He then activates Machine Duplication, which I decide to go ahead and negate with Lagia, although I think it's better for me just to hold it for the Cybernetic Overflow. I'm not exactly quite sure. Then he draws into an Impermanence as well as an Ash Blossom, and at this point he just scoops it up because he doesn't think his hand's super great. So I keep playing my turn if it was my turn, so I go ahead and like use the Lagia and the Rex, and I go for Phoenix and I pitch Sproutless End, and I'm gonna like hit whatever the back row is that he set, probably the Overflow. And if he sets another back row, which he'd probably just set all these 3, then I'd use the Miscellaneous Sources effect, banishing 2, and then the Rex effect summons itself back, although I did miss the effect here. Petite's going to go ahead and pop a card on the field, which would be whatever the other back row is, and then we can go ahead and search for our, go for Ovi, search our Conductor. And at this point, I'm not actually sure if I play Unicorn, but I would probably make a Unicorn here and hit the other back row. So like we got rid of all 3 back rows in this instance, and then we can go ahead and like make Conductor and stuff like that. But you know, just for showing purposes, I can make like a Borreload here. I can still make Conductor, and at this point, this is like so much damage anyways, it doesn't even matter. So I just figured it might as well be fun for me to show what I could do. But that's going to do it for today's episode. I hope you guys enjoyed. We actually hit a rating of, I believe, 483. So we're halfway to 1,000, which almost halfway to 1,000 at least. So that's pretty cool. Hopefully we'll get there, you know, someday. Hopefully by the end of the format. That's at least the goal. So yeah, but I hope you guys enjoyed this deck profile, or not deck profile, but this episode. And I probably will have a deck profile of this up after the 3v3. And yeah, so I hope you guys enjoy, and I'll see you guys in the next episode.